mall terrorism and economic hardships. I've just got more video footage of Montreal this time and a little bit more color on the Eaton Centre. Seems like a coordinated attack to me. Byron Bridle has his job reinstated. I've got that good news. Thanks, Greg, for sharing it, sending it my way. So I've got that for you. 4 years till Syria's next election. So that seems like a long time. So the new leader of Syria is saying, oh yeah, no elections for 4 years. We just won. And Gerald Butts is talking about Justin Trudeau and saying that he's going to be stepping down, resignation. Why? Why is Justin Trudeau going to be stepping down and resigning? Because that triggers a leadership race in the Liberal Party, and that buys them 4 months. No confidence vote during that leadership race. Shucks darn, right? So I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if a prorogation will work in this circumstance, but it seems that's what the Liberals think, and that's what they're going to go for. So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to look at this new Chinese drone. It is a Divine Eagle stealth drone, and it looks like an old school, it looks like Mulder's picture of a UFO, right? I want to believe. Here's video footage of the stealth drone. Really? Like that on it. People were saying, is this AI or is this like a real drone? I don't know. What do you think? The video looks real, but there's all sorts of AI videos that look real these days, right? So, but it looks like the top hat part of the alien UFO looking craft is hollow. Like it looks like it's just an outline. It doesn't look like there's anything in there. And so that's interesting. Is that part of the stealthiness, or did they just want it to look like an iron? Like, I'm not sure. It's interesting to watch. So we'll see. Are these stealth drones the newest technology? If you see a UFO, well, it's probably not from another galaxy or anything like that. It's probably just from China. Okay, so it's a weather balloon. Promise, for real. Don't look up. JJ McCullough, let's talk about Trudeau and all of the craziness surrounding our politics. JJ McCullough says, I don't know why the press has decided to throw its weight behind the Trudeau should resign narrative rather than the Trudeau should call an election one. The former is objectively much worse for the country. So having Trudeau go through resigning and then plunging the Liberals into a leadership leadership election is bad for the country because Donald Trump's threatening tariffs and Canada's on vacation. So that's bad, right? So, but the reason is Trudeau wants to hold on to power as long as possible and continue his policies as long as possible. And so he's going to plunge everybody into a leadership race. And Jagmeet Singh is going to support it. Why is Jagmeet Singh going to support it? Because he's getting rid of Trudeau and he doesn't want Poilievre to be in power. That's why. Here is gov.exe, and this is CTV News reporting that Gerald Butts is saying that Trudeau is going to step down. Here we go.
We'll be getting a hint of the Prime Minister's next steps into the political unknown, this time from a close friend and confidant who says Justin Trudeau may not be the leader of the Liberals for much longer. The PM's former chief advisor, Gerald Butts, says Trudeau is reeling from a staggering blow after the resignation of longtime ally Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Butts says Trudeau stepping down would lead to a potential election sooner rather than later, with the Conservatives winning a majority. And if that election were to happen right now, according to Canada 338, it would be devastating for the Liberals. It shows not only will they lose, but possibly drop to third place. Let's bring in Scott.
So there you go. We'll leave it there. Interesting, right? So the Liberals are tanking in the polls, going to third place behind the Bloc, which is embarrassing, right? And really, I don't know how they're even getting third place at this point in time, but I digress. Mark says Trudeau's best friend and former advisor says his resignation is now widely expected. The Liberal masterminds are scrambling for a leadership race. The Trudeau era is officially over. Well, let's not count our chickens yet. His political career is in ruins, and the chaos will haunt the Liberals for years. Yeah, I hope so. That's a little bit of Schadenfreude, I think that's how you say that. I'm saying it terribly wrong. Anti-taxer is saying it's been almost 3 years since Justin Trudeau used the Emergency Act. He has shown zero remorse or even a shred of humility. Even a third of his caucus is begging him to just leave already. Being told to go away with a 4-letter word is pretty polite, in my opinion. Yeah, and I mean, she said, yeah, you suck. See you later. Like, get out of here. Joe Warmington is saying, do you like to see Justin Trudeau treated so rudely or profanely in British Columbia, skiing with his kids, or feel it's crossing the line into his personal time and space? I don't like it myself, but I also know there are people who believe public heckling harassment goes with the turf. What do you think? And people are trying to push back and say what this woman did was bad. She didn't scream and yell at him. She wasn't like uncouth, I don't think. Coming up and having a little private little conversation there, she could have said anything. You know what I mean? And if you've got to modulate what you want your feedback to the prime minister to be, if there's kids around, he's going to always surround himself with kids so that he can never hear that awful, awful language. Oh, the prime minister's, tiny little ears, they're bleeding because people are so mean to him. Like, give me a break. Give me a break, really, honestly. He froze people's bank accounts without charge or conviction. He called people, he coined the term anti-vaxxers and then gleefully labeled Canadians as anti-vaxxers. He told people to not invite their uncle who didn't believe in vaccinations and things like that. Absolutely vicious personal attacks against people he doesn't know. And so people say, hey, listen, dude, like, you've gone way too far. People are sick and tired of everything that you've done. Get out of here. Get out of here. This is very polite. Canadians are very polite. Ryan Garrettson says, the people angry about the woman who approached Trudeau and told him to get the F out had no issues with this. Spare us your fake outrage. The Toronto Star published, if an unvaccinated person catches it from someone who is vaccinated, boohoo, too bad. So this is when they thought that catching COVID was more than a mild inconvenience. Like, this is when they thought it would kill you, right? Like, I have no empathy left for the willfully unvaccinated. Let them die. Well, sorry that your bioweapon attack thing didn't work out and we're all still here. That's kind of uncomfortable, eh? The Toronto Star? Like, let them die. And these aren't attributed to anybody. Like, who made these up? The Toronto Star? So I think somebody went through and found these tweets, but still, using these tweets, give me a break, right? Kevin Vung is also on the anti-Trudeau train, and he's not in Whistler. He's doing it publicly where his kids could search on the internet and come across it, right? Like, terrible. Won't somebody think about the children? Kevin Vung says Canada's fake feminist prime minister is running out of women to use as props. Right? Running out of women to throw under the bus. How dare he say that? Duncan D says, if the Liberal Party believes that it's appropriate for Parliament to stand prorogued as a new U.S. administration takes office and threatens Canada's most important trade relationship, they've truly crossed the Rubicon and have placed their partisan interests ahead of the country's. If the Liberal Party believes that a 3 to 4 month prorogation so that they can organize a leadership race is acceptable or appropriate, then they've overestimated the patience of the vast majority of Canadians for their shenanigans. Listen, time out, this is me. Our party's in complete disarray. The economy's tanking. There's no housing. And we think the only solution is raising taxes and bringing in immigrants. So we're going to not have government for 4 months while we get our party in order. Cool? No, absolutely effing not cool. Please no, absolutely not. Back to this. By dithering through the summer and fall with the cooperation of Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, Justin Trudeau and his party have torched the possibility of a well-planned transition to a new leader. Absolutely true. The Liberal Party does not deserve, nor have they earned the patience of Canadians in the current circumstances. They've lost their legitimacy. They have no mandate. Their own former Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister has lost the faith in their leader. Their long-standing allies in the NDP have calculated that their own interests are no longer served by their coalition, yet they still prop them up. Time's up. Election now. But that's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is trigger a 3 to 4 month prorogation so the Liberals can put out the fires and put a new leader in place and hopefully convince people that no, new leader means absolutely a new Liberal Party. So, don't listen to that idiot Justin Trudeau, especially about prorogation. Pierre Poilievre says Liberals rumored to be planning to shut down prorogue Parliament and paralyze the government in the middle of a housing, crime, trade, and cost of living crisis, all to save themselves from a carbon tax election. Here is Trudeau denouncing prorogation. sign here. I've shown this video recently. I said it's very performative. It is performative. So if you want to listen to Justin Trudeau denounce prorogation, I'll leave the link in the description. I don't feel like we'll be well served to listen to him at all. But rest assured, he's denouncing prorogation, but he's two-faced. So he says anything that he thinks people will like. Brett is responding to Billboard. Chris, in the context of all of this, one of the things that kind of bothers me about the polling, and it sticks out because it's odd, is, and not because I'm a PPC bro or anything like that. I mean, I ran for the PPC, and I think that probably the PPC represents a good, would represent a good change to the government. But here we are, and that's not looking likely. But the polls bother me because Poilievre has this massive supermajority, like 220 plus seats. Justin Trudeau won 207, like with his super big majority, right? So as far as I remember anyway, maybe it was more. But I've seen as high as 250 seats for Pierre Poilievre, which is really high. And so you would think that there are people who are more radical than the Conservatives, who are more right-wing, radical is probably the wrong word, but who are like, listen, man, that's not enough. What we've heard from you is not enough. I want more, right? And those people would naturally overflow into the PPC. Like usually, just like there's people who say, listen, liberals, you're not socialist enough for me. I want more. There's the NDP. And the NDP drags the liberals to the left, where the PPC would drag or keep the Conservatives honest to the right, hold them to the right, rather than letting them drift into the middle, right? And you would expect that as the Conservatives become wildly popular, you'd see the PPC rising up too because of that ability for people to talk about that more. And I'm not going to be convinced that Pierre Poilievre represents all of the Conservatives in Canada. There's nobody more hard conservative than the Conservative Party, except for a very small, less than 5% grouping for the PPC. I think the PPC is probably around 13 to 17, I could believe, right? I don't think they're above 20, but they have a lot of recognition. So anyway, it sticks out to me because it doesn't seem honest. And I explain it to myself by saying, well, the polls are rigged. It seems like the polls are rigged for this and other reasons, but it's just one of those things, right? It sticks out. Red flag, like a sore thumb. Anyway, Billboard Chris is talking about the PPC. He says the PPC is very valuable at this time in that they can hold the Conservative Party accountable for actual conservatism and common sense. There has to be more than just blind support. The government works for and answers to us. And that's true. I think that that's accurate. Like, one of the really big issues online is there's a lot of divisive fighting. If you say, well, I'm for the PPC, a CPC person starts attacking you often. And if somebody says, well, I'm for the CPC, a PPC person will start attacking that person. It happens on both sides. And not just on X, I've seen it in other places as well. And it becomes a flame war instead of trying to build like, well, I agree with you here. I don't agree with you here. I think we need more things here, right? Like here's the part of the policies that we have a real problem with. And then you've got a dialogue that's actually productive rather than, everybody who's voting for PPC is Trudeau shill and everybody who's CPC is a globalist shill, right? Like it's not productive. It's so frustrating, but it's done on purpose. And I feel like it's driven by dishonest actors, whether that be bots, click farms, or paid influencers or whatever. But there's a whole list of ways you can push this narrative and make it look grassroots. And that's interesting too. So Brett says, this is exactly why I support the PPC. The Conservatives are going to win the next election because no one in their right mind would vote for Trudeau again. However, there is an important role to hold the CPC to conservative values, something that they seem to struggle with immensely on their own. They have been prone to taking conservative votes for granted. Yes, and worse. Here is more on the mall stuff going on. Brian Lilly says, absolute lunatics taking over the Eaton Centre in Toronto on Boxing Day. They are targeting a Jewish-owned business, Indigo. They also believe that you should be able to lead a normal life until you shouldn't be able to lead a normal life until they get what they want. Full support for terror attacks on Israel. And General Hillier says, this is, quite frankly, another form of terrorism here, tolerated, accepted, empowered by inaction in Canada. Shame. yes, Canada is allowing domestic terrorists to take over shopping centers and doing nothing, and using the Emergency Act to crack down on truckers who have the support of Canadians by and large through monetary donations, and who just wanted to talk to the Prime Minister. So like, these things are jaw-dropping and absolutely unforgivable. Here is Aviva, and she says, the mob screaming in a Montreal mall forces businesses to shut. Where in the heck are the leaders of this country? Why are we allowing terror sympathizers to run rampant? This is posted on December 28th, which is yesterday. I don't know when this happened. I don't know if this is an ongoing mall attack or what, but this is, again, a complete and utter failure from levels of government that should be. Businesses come to Canada to open up their stores so customers can come and buy their goods and things like that. And we pay taxes for police to make sure that crap like this can't happen, right? Like, and they'll say, oh, they're protesting something they believe strongly in. Not in a mall. Like, this is private property. They're not allowed to do this. This is insanity. You can't do this, right? Like, if you walked in there and you were protesting for some kind of benign thing, the mall security guard would be like, listen, dude, love whatever you're doing. Get out. See you later. Bye. You're not allowed to do this. So why are they allowed to do this? Right? So Mark says every issue is secondary to immigration because immigration decides every other issue. Yes, demographics matter. Look at England. Look at a whole bunch of countries that were formerly Christian countries and are now Islamic. Malaysia was a Christian country. There's like 9 or 10 that are similar, and now Islamic full face coverings and everything. And even England has Sharia law and Sharia courts, all sorts of really concerning stuff. The Feddersons has United We Fall, a documentary about the North American Union between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. For years, this topic has been debated in the news and in political circles as being a possible future for North America. Yeah, the Amero. I was saying the Eagle, but I think people were right with the Amero. I don't think the Amero would take hold. It doesn't sound like the euro, the dollar, these things roll off your tongue. Amero and euro sound too close. Amero, euro. I wonder, that's on purpose, right? So I don't think Amero would work. Like, the name is stupid. Eagle's better. Anyway, regardless. United We Fall is a documentary. I'm 10 minutes into it, talking about how tying up the Canada, United States, all of that has been part of the plan since the 90s, and people have been pushing back on it since the 90s. That's where I'm at in the documentary. Like, people are pushing back on NWO and all of this other stuff. So they don't like that. They don't want an Amero. They don't want a North American superstate. So this doesn't sound sinister at all. Election Wizard says, Trump team says Canada, Greenland, Panama comments are part of a broader plan. And NWO confirmed. So I'm just kidding. Not really. I mean, like, I wonder what the broader plan is. That's classified. Next question. Here is a minute on the interesting juxtaposition between your ability to bring plants into the United States versus your ability to drop thousands of migrants into the United States. Here we go.
And while it's illegal to bring a plant across the border because it might upset the natural ecosystem, somehow airdropping millions of people from incompatible cultures that also hate us is somehow supposed to benefit us. In 1914, almost 35% of the global population was people of European descent. And only around a century later, that number is now down to 8%. And the other 92% of the global population, which in all Western countries we like to call minorities, openly are tracking how soon we're going to be minorities in all of our home countries that our ancestors built. All while millions of our taxpayer money is spent on asylum, aid, welfare, in order to subsidize their birth rates while crippling ours. This is what we like to call progress. Because at the end of the day, the truth of the matter that a majority of these foreigners see our homes as nothing more than an economic zone for them to exploit, because they see us as nothing more than a means to an end. They plunder it and then send all those resources back to their home country, which they will openly tell you they see as home.
Okay, so it's interesting and concerning. Here's Bernie. She says, economically illiterate labor are about to increase the cost of renting for millions by forcing property owners into making expensive and pointless eco improvements, they will then add the cost of rent or cost to rent or sell up, making rents even more unaffordable. So the rent in England is kind of affordable, I guess, now, and it is going to be made not affordable through bad policy. And this is on purpose because our leadership hates us, and it seems like we live in an under an occupied system. Moving on, CBC is talking to former Premier of British Columbia, and they're going back and forth about how serious are these issues at the border. Is Donald Trump correct to say that these issues are worth these tariffs and more? And this gentleman, and this guy pronounces his name wrong as well, so I'm not even going to try. Says, yeah, man, obviously. Yes, here we go.
Note, this all comes at a time when we're dealing with President-elect Trump, and he's not very happy with what he feels is a porous border on our end, leading to many illegal immigrants and substances coming into his country. Do you think that this investigation and the allegations coming out of it prove that, maybe Trump has a point?
Well, Trump has a point. I mean, if we have thousands of students that come every year and then don't stay here and go across to Canada, to the U.S., despite the fact that the numbers of illegal aliens going from Canada into the United States is negligible compared to what's coming from South America into the U.S., it is a problem. We have a credibility issue, and the way our immigration department, the lack of screening of immigrants and students that have come into this country, we have created a problem for ourselves. And the government has done a great disservice by inviting all of these people unscreened into the country who aren't necessarily, valid immigrants or valid students.
It's certainly going to be a big cleanup operation. That's Ujjal Dosanjh, former Premier of British Columbia.
There you go. See, it's not just me who has problems pronouncing names sometimes. Here is Pierre Poilievre, and he is still campaigning for the role of Prime Minister. This is interesting. This is the second or third Hanukkah post in as many days. He did one on Christmas Day. He did one yesterday. Well, he's done multiple of these posts. Anyway, he says, Rabbi Mendel Kaplan's highly entertaining and super relevant explanation of Hanukkah, a must-see for all. I watched this. I didn't watch the full 8 minutes. I watched kind of just the initial back and forth between these two, and I just thought, there's weird. It's a little weird. And how this rabbi describes what's going on now. Projection? Is it? I think projection is the word I'm looking for. We're not going to listen to much of this. We're going to listen to the first minute or so, but just there's all sorts of interesting little nuggets in here. Here we go.
First of all, thank you, Rabbi Poilievre.
Thank you.
That was a beautiful Hanukkah message.
Thank you.
And I did some research to try to make sure
I train at his yeshiva, by the way.
I have an online yeshiva. It's kind of true. So just to refresh our memories on the story of Hanukkah and why we're here tonight in the Second Temple era, the Jewish people in the land of Israel, which was then called Judea, and we lived under the occupation of the Seleucid globalist empire. The Jewish people were so heavily taxed and oppressed by the people who occupied their country, and their personal freedoms were being increasingly taken away, and a housing crisis erupted. Thugs were...
That's about as far as I lasted. I think I lasted 2 or 3 more lines, but that's about it. Right? So you see the parallels he's drawing. It's just, man, it's interesting when you go a couple of layers deep. And I'm not going to go a couple of layers deep today, but I'm sure you can find discussion about a couple of layers deep and how interesting all that is. Okay? Okay. Some interesting news coming out of the Roy Green show. Roy Green is leaving. Holly Doan is reporting. Radio host Roy Green announced that he has stage 4 metastatic cancer and will leave the show. Thank you, Roy. Your generosity and charm will be deeply missed. Blacklock's editor Tom Korsky joins Roy tomorrow. And Senator Denise Batters says, Dear Roy Green Show, so sorry to see this news, sending you my very best wishes and prayers. It was always a pleasure to be on your show. You spoke for the people. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate. And Roy Green Show himself responds. He says, heartfelt appreciation for your support both for the program and my personal battle with cancer. The program ends January 26th, but your generosity of spirit will fuel my fight against what lies ahead. My thoughts are with everyone engaged in a life-threatening health challenge. Right, so makes sense. So that's sad news, but I mean, life does move on. Let's talk about infrastructure, and I mean, not needing to be flippant or anything like that. It's just one of those things. It's sad, and I wish him the best. I hope things are get better, and I hope that he recovers, etc. Here is, this guy sounded like Noel. Somebody sent this to me and said this happened just north of North Bay, and I guess there is a
buddy's axle broke and the tire popped off.
Couldn't this be Noel from the Kitchen Table Talks? If somebody said this is Noel telling us about what's going on, I would believe him.
As he was coming up the road, you can see this tire track here. The tire came off and bounced on my property, and we'll follow the track. The track goes this way between our buildings, and it comes to a stop over here. Now notice it's still smoking. I'm assuming it landed on this first depression, and with all the heat, it popped the seal and flipped the tire up in the air, and there's where it ended up. So this just happened.
So there you go. Interesting, right? Just this is going to road safety, in all the safety overall of our highways and breaking down of infrastructure. It seems like things are getting old and not being replaced, and I think those are cost-cutting measures, etc. This fire happened yesterday, and Mark says West Shore Coal Terminal at Delta Port is on fire, located near the ferry terminal in Vancouver. I'm going to slaughter that name, so I'm not even going to try it. That's one way to stop sending Canadian coal to China. So it's the coal conveyor that loads ships to send coal to China, and it's on fire. So there you go. It's shock starred, right? So apparently it got put out, and everything's fine.
This is really bad. Holy shit.
Yeah, but it got contained and put out apparently. Here is Gov.exe says reports of 3 major air travel incidents occurring in the last 24 hours. That safety record of plane travel is rut-row, right? Kind of being Swiss cheesed. So 2 of 3 resulted in minor injuries, while the Jeju Air 2216 crashed with at least 167 fatalities. This crash is just terrible. What happened is the landing gear failed to deploy. Because the landing gear failed to deploy, they couldn't slow. There was no brakes. They couldn't slow the aircraft, so it plowed right into the wall at the end, and it blew up. I mean, at what point do you deploy the slide thing, right? Like, but I mean, jeepers creepers, you wouldn't have much time to get off that. Here is, and that wasn't all the airplane disasters yesterday. This was an Air Canada flight. I guess the wheel or the wing touched the ground because of some crosswind. The wing touched the ground. Yeah, did I say wheel? Wing crossed the ground, and caught fire. And somebody was taking video footage. Not great, right? Like that's 10 seconds of being on a plane that I would never ever want to actually be on, right? So again, it seems something's happening, which didn't used to happen before, right? And that's something to pay attention to. Kathy is reporting this, and thanks, Greg, for sharing this news. Byram Bridle has been reinstated at the University of Guelph. So as of December 19th, according to this post, Kathy posted this on December 19th anyway. Greg sent this. Did I say that? Oh my gosh. Anyway, Dr. Byron Bridle, incredible courage and integrity, says, quote, "It's been 3 years, 4 months, and 23 days, 1,243 total days, and I'm finally back in my office at the university that employs me. I was banished from my workspace almost 3.5 years ago following a radio interview in which I expressed concerns about the systemic biodistribution of COVID-19 shots throughout the body. I disclosed scientific data that aligned with a long history of lipid nanoparticle technology, but contrasted with the dominant global narrative that existed at the time. My controversial statements are now well-accepted facts and scientific literature." Link in comments. So that's good. I'm glad that the university had to eat crow and reinstate him, and I hope that his office was exactly as he left it. I hope that they really just, I hope they had to give him back pay. I hope it was a complete exercise in futility. I'm glad that he won. It sucks that they had to go through all of that. And it's interesting that the universities are that out of control. It takes 3 years of litigation to have the right outcome. You know what I mean? Like Jeepers Creepers. Or it takes three and a half years of trying to get the right outcome. So that's a nice Christmas present for him though, right? Interesting stuff. National Post says Josh DeHouse is saying Pat King's conviction proves Trudeau didn't need the Emergencies Act. Pat King's conviction actually proves that the entire system is corrupt. The whole justice system is a corrupt piece of nonsense that does not serve the Canadian public and does not enforce our laws in an equal way. Pat King shouldn't have been convicted for anything. If Justin Trudeau is still the Prime Minister when Tamara Lich gets sentenced, she'll get 10 years. If he's not the Prime Minister, she'll get a slap on the wrist, if anything at all. Honestly, I truly believe that. So it'll be interesting. It sounds like he's not going to be the Prime Minister. So interesting that the judges dragging their feet is going to benefit Tamara Lich, but Pat King is kind of screwed, right? So not so good. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.